Okay, welcome to my world history notes. In case this is the first time you're watching, this is not polished and professional, and I'm not going to get into a lot of detail. What I'm doing is I'm just sharing with people um, what I'm learning about the Cold War that's surprising and interesting to me, and I just want to share it with you because this is an easy way to do it. Um, and like there's a lot more polished and better and more scholarly presentations on the YouTube and other places, and I encourage you to look them up. But what I'm looking at is I'm just in the last year, just going over the surface, superficial stuff. I'm seeing things and connections. You hear things in the news today, somebody says something, and as you're reading, you start to go, wait, I've heard that before. One of the biggest shocks, and one of the reasons I'm doing the Cold War, I'm studying the Cold War, is that I was pretty leftist when I was young. I was pretty much in that anti-Vietnam era toward the end, um, the anti-establishment, the generation that rebelled and all that. And I had a lot of things that I thought were uniquely, I thought they were original ideas and things that I said, thought. And then in the last year, I've read those things in leftist and communist writers before I even existed. And I'm going like, wait a minute. These things were planted in us. These were given to us. These were part of influence and propaganda that communist and left leaning, and communist is the ultimate. Um, Socialist, but communists are really communists have killed socialists, by the way. And the things that I was believing and saying weren't my original thoughts. They weren't my unique expressions. They were actually they were actually from other people's writings. So anyway, I just was interested and amazed at that. So my cat Frankie is trying to be a pest. Um, that's okay. He's cute. So now I'm going to talk about somebody today. Now I've been bringing up people that are interesting to me that had something to do with the Cold War. Okay, and this is one of those situations that are fascinating to me because a lot of times you have um, people who were communists who were um, who became virulent right wing opposed to communism because of what they saw and because of it hit them in the head, which gives me a lot of encouragement for people on the left that they can at least get a balanced idea of what's really going on and reject some of the more extreme positions of their side, which would lead us to total destruction, no freedom, total oppression, authoritarian government, totalitarianism. So there are people, and I've read, I Confess, the communist who a former communist, and Eugene Lyons, the pro-communist who wrote the Red Decade, and I think the other way I was named Benjamin Gitz or something, who was a communist, a member of the Communist Party. And in any event, you find these people that they're really interesting and they have a lot to say, and because they were part of the system, the communist system, they were part of where they were part of this belief that what the Soviet Union was putting out, or what Marx, other communist writers, left wing writers had said was true, and I guess I'm going to have to mess with him to get him to stop. Um, Now he's looking at my hand. Okay, so anyway, so here's some interesting, and here's a guy I think is very interesting. His name is David Horowitz, and he is a writer. And what happened was David Horowitz is considered to be an American conservative writer. Okay, now he is president of the David Horowitz Freedom Center. He's editor of Front Page Magazine. He is the founder and director of Discover the Networks that tracks groups on the left. Um, and he founded the organization Students for Academic Freedom. Now, he is the thing about him that's so interesting. Now, you know him as a conservative, you might have heard about him. But the thing about him is that from the year I was born till 1975, Horowitz was an outspoken uh, vocalist for the new left, which I've talked about, Herbert Marcuse and all that. And it wasn't until much later that he rejected the left and became a defender of what some people call him a neoconservative. He kept that secret for about 10 years. It happened in about 1975, but it wasn't until 1985 that he came public with that. It's really interesting. His parents were Russian immigrants, okay, and they were longstanding members of the Communist Party, strong supporters of Joseph Stalin. Uh, they left the party after Khrushchev published his report in 1956 about Stalin's crimes and how he had committed terrorism against the Soviet population. So anyway, he is a BA from Columbia University, and amazingly, he got a master's degree in English literature from UCal Berkeley. Well, it's not amazing; it's just it figures. Left. Berkeley's always been kind of leftist. Um, so anyway, he. What's interesting about Horowitz on the left is that he had friends that I'll give you an example. This is publicly reported. It's common to find out. He was very close friends with Huey Newton, who was the founder of the Black Panther Party. And he helped raise money for him. The Black Panthers, the Black Panthers, and we'll get to that, but they're a Marxist organization. See, the civil rights movement, much of the civil rights movement identifies a legitimate problem, and the problem is the oppression of Black people and racism, Jim Crow laws, things like that, the denial of white people about slavery, just the refusal to accept that there was oppression in many cases. But the solution that the leftists apply, is communism, socialism, which enslaves people and would put the Black African American in chains than they were in slavery. Everybody would be in chains. It's sort of like, acknowledge the leftists, like the Black Panthers or Black Lives Matter. They're Marxist, and what their solution for this horrible problem or this issue in history and currently is to put everybody in chains rather than have their chains removed. Let's just enslave everybody, and we'll all be slaves together. And I think that's wrong. But anyway, Horowitz raised money for Huey P. Newton and the Black Panther Party. He helped run a school for poor children in Oakland, and he was, so this is a very far left guy. He was, but then he started to reject Marxism and socialism, and it wasn't for 10 years before he started to release this information. He started posting Washington Post magazine. It's called Lefties for Reagan. He announced that he had rejected the socialism, and he attended a conference in Krakow, Poland, calling for the end of communism in '89, and marched with Polish dissidents. And so now he's considered an extreme right-wing writer. So it's a very very interesting how this person made a turn. Now, whether or not he's gone in the right direction or if he's doing things extreme the other way, zealots are zealots, and I'm not criticizing Mr. Horowitz. I think he's done some great work. Whether I agree with him or not, that's another issue. And but I just thought it was interesting as a personality. I wanted to present him to you. Now let's look at a timeline. During the Chinese Civil War, the Xinhua campaign ended in communist victory. That was two battles fought between the Communist New Fourth Army and the Nationalist forces of the Kuomintang. And then it ended with the Battle of Dazongji, and it resulted in communist victory. And I'm not going to get into details, strategy, tactics. That's not what this is for. Okay, there's a lot of good people who have a lot of detailed information on that, and I encourage them to do a YouTube or something. But it's just fascinating stuff. Also, British colonial secretary Franklin Charles Gimson established a temporary government in Hong Kong. Hong Kong, British colony, they surrendered to communist China in 1997, and now Hong Kong's freedoms, and I would say, what made Hong Kong great, have been taken away by the Communist Chinese Party. I don't have a problem with 1 billion Chinese. I have a problem with 100 million communist Chinese. Okay, and 7% of China's population are members of the Communist Party, and the Communist Party is enslaving the rest of China. So, I feel for those people, and so let's remember when we think of communist China, let's not attack the poor Joe and Josephine on the ground who are being has a boot on their neck, because this is not fair, and there is a possibility for change. Now, another thing I want to go over, in September 2nd, Japan officially surrendered. The Japanese instruments of surrender was signed aboard the battleship USS Missouri in Tokyo Bay, and the Second World War ended. Um, the Democratic Republic of Vietnam, this is very important for later on, was proclaimed when revolutionary leader Ho Chi Minh declared independence from France. Now, it was a socialist country supported by the Soviet Union and the People's Republic of China, and existed as it fought. The country was recognized in 1954, and then the North Vietnamese and South Vietnamese states that they had split into ceased to exist when they became unified as the Socialist Republic of Vietnam in '76. So just remember the August Revolution for World War II. Ho Chi Minh, leader of Viet Minh, declared independence from France, and so the Viet Minh was the League for Independence of Vietnam, led by communists, was created in '41 and was designed to appeal to more people than the Indo-Chinese Communist Party could do. So it was a very brutal regime. What we don't understand today, because of the propaganda that we get in history, it was so brutal. It was just a very brutal regime. I just read about people who spoke up against the communists having things like chopsticks driven through their ears and their brains, and just all kinds of horrible things. Or like, we'll get to this later, but one American general reported that our troops would go through villages and vaccinate little kids, and then we come back and there'd be a pile of, we'd be, emergency, somebody call for help, and there'd be a pile of little arms that they cut off. I mean, these people were just monsters, and communists are evil. But you know what? You won't get to see all that in the public media because of so much communist influence in our culture, our news media, and our government. So anyway, we'll stop there, and we'll pick it up with some other things that I think are interesting. And like I say, this isn't, you're not going to write a paper about what I say at school. I mean, that's not what this is about. This is about my journey as I learn about what really has happened and how easy it is to see right on the surface, and then how it's affecting us today. So I just wanted to point that out to you, and I hope that you'll do some studying on your own and see what's happened. Thank you.